So I just love this picture for all of us because of the nature of what it is. This is a very simple diagram of the human structure. And then we have all of these foods that are what I like to say closer to nature. It's not that we can't have other foods, but these foods are just a little closer to where they originally came from. And that can be one of the toughest things to manage in our world with, acquiring ingredients and making them work. But this picture just is a kind of a fun little, probably found in Pinterest or something picture to again talk about the foods that are closer to nature. Any questions so far? So, one of the most global ways to think of food is generally a source of energy. There's this equation that I love to write out. And if I had a chalkboard, I'd do that with you right now. But food equals calories. We talk about the word calories a lot, which is, by the way, one of my least favorite words. It's a very scientific universal term, but calories are just a form of energy. So ultimately, food is simply your physical energy, returns into your physical energy. We require food for every function from brain function all the way down to our feet functioning, in a way that we want them to work. There's certainly loud ways that our body tells us that it's not receiving what it needs, which can be more energetic fatigue or maybe difficulty focusing. But other ways can be simply what the other question I have here is, how is your physical energy during the day? So food, again, with the gift of what it can give, is, I think there's a lot of confusion. That's what I see in the marketplace, and I see certainly across in my business when people come and we have conversations about food and the push for protein. It's a very loud push, even down to some of what the top people in our government are talking about now. But without the carbohydrate to match with the protein, our physical energy will not be the same. So a little bit of a basic concept, but when we talk about, people will come to me and talk about their fatigue, and the first thing I'll want to understand for them is whether or not they're eating during the day. And for whatever reason, it's very common and function where we simply miss meals or accidentally skip something. And so then that becomes this gap. And of course, our body tells us with energy changes when it's not really happy with those experiences. So, very simply, again, food really is your physical, what becomes the manifestation of your physical energy. Very globally, I think this is one of the questions, Dr. Hicks Fox, that you shared. What are macronutrients? Macronutrients really are, and macro meaning big. The three biggest and only macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and we call them fats. I personally prefer the word lipid, which is the sort of scientific version of what fat is. So carbohydrate, protein, or lipid or fat are the three. There are micronutrients. I really don't get too much into that language in this workshop presentation because the micronutrients are really vast. Micronutrients are every vitamin or mineral you can conceptualize. So that micro is the little and the macro being the big, and we require the macros, and the micros are only well absorbed if we get enough of the macros. So they ideally all come together in one place, and we're not supplementing here and rejecting foods here. They're really all one in the same experience with food. For example, when I think about like the produce kingdom of like all these gorgeous apples and oranges and watermelon and grapes, so all these beautiful fruits, and they're all so different from each other in the sense of their color, in the sense of their texture, their flavor. And the beauty of that is they're all a carbohydrate, they're all beautiful fruit, but individually they all have different vitamin profiles. And in each profile is this wonderful way to get those micronutrients with the macronutrients, for example. So that's just one example, but in most foods, most macronutrients carry some micronutrients, if that makes sense. And I could go on about that all day because that's like almost what I talk about with people all day with macros. And I think one of the other big questions that comes across for so many people, and especially with the language that exists today in sort of like, what's the word I want to use, making carbohydrates wrong, or even the word is demonizing carbohydrates. They've been given such this reputation of they're the wrong things to eat and protein is the right thing to eat. And that is physiologically not a good choice for anybody. It is true that someone, training for, let's say, the Boston Marathon would need significantly more carbohydrate or starch or fruit than someone who is preferring to watch more TV, for example, on a couch, right? There's a very extreme example, but to eliminate a food group is not, it is physiologically, and it's, I'm getting a little medical, but physically for our bodies, it can become harmful in the long run, actually. In the short run, our bodies are very intelligent and they'll make it work. They'll find other ways to fortify themselves itself, but then after that, there can be harm. So eliminating food groups and macronutrients for our language here is, it's not optimal, is my recommendation. So don't do that. And then we can talk more about that at the end for certain, but I just want to make sure I say that because I'm constantly, I feel like I'm the carbohydrate cheerleader. And not for any other reason other than there's never really been a time that we didn't need it. But like so much in the marketplace, what sells well. And forgive me for using a brand here, but I was shopping the other day and there were Pop-Tarts with protein. And I think it's gone too far. Yes, I do. That does not make sense to me on any given day. So just know that the marketplace really is what is sort of, I don't want to use the word determining, but like pushing now because everybody wants to make a buck and that's what business does. So anyway, I'm your carbohydrate cheerleader, I guess. Next slide. Apples, come on, right? We're the Michigan, the Apple State. Oh my gosh. Okay, so silly pictures, but I really do want to talk about cravings. And I don't think I like that picture anymore. I think I need to change that. But I think people do get frustrated with cravings. And I want to talk about them in two different languages. The first language is our body can be smarter than us. And what I mean by that is back to that example where you might have fatigue during the day if you're not getting enough food to feed your body. The same thing can happen if, let's say, that someone is too busy during the day or they were out and about and they missed a snack or a meal. And all of a sudden, between about 6 and 10 at night, they want to eat everything that isn't nailed down, or they're craving something sweet, or sort of their body starts speaking for them. And they didn't intend to have that craving, but their body has the language and it's hard to ignore. So our body can be smarter than us, meaning that if there's something missing, it'll ask for it in the simplest way possible. The other thing is that I like to say this, like typically we don't crave things we've never eaten. So if you are having a craving, you're likely to be having a craving of something that you've enjoyed or that you've experienced, or the mouth feel is familiar. It's not that you're going to be craving things you don't need, but more often I'd like to focus on the fact that when we're craving something, it's either a habitual and it's nature of what we've taught our body to ask for, or we're missing things at other points. And our body is simply just saying, if you want me to get up and do tomorrow, I need something because you missed those things. So I need something to put back in because there's again, a missing component, which typically ends up at this point, from what I'm seeing in my practice, it is carbohydrate. So people are racking through their day and they're, eating what they think is right. And then all of a sudden, 7 o'clock comes and they're like, my goodness, I could just sleep with a bowl of ice cream next to me tonight. They can't get enough carbohydrate to reenact their energy. So either way, like eating fully and well during the day with all macronutrients is the prevention to avoid or again prevent cravings. So it's sort of a simple way, but it's there's so much to it, and the amount of people that end up saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm having a lunch that has these other macronutrients. I'm kind of surprised I'm not hungry at night." There was Ever been a day you didn't need lunch, right? We need these foods, and then again, our bodies will be smart enough to say you didn't give it to me, so we get those notes and those asks from our body. So okay, this is just a cute little graphic, and I like to talk about this. So here I am drinking coffee, but I do have water too. I want to show you. I do. I brought my water. Staying hydrated, even in the winter, I believe from what I see in practice that a lot of people have a little bit of a bumpier time staying hydrated in the winter. But this cute little graphic, um, just shows wonderful ways to see if there's another way to try a different method. I don't know what it is about a straw. So many people find drinking water with a straw to be an easier, more I don't know, more available way. And this is again, it's just a simple graphic, but um, and this is again, I want to give you a universal recommendation for hydration and water. And I also want to captivate with that with saying, if you have a medical condition where your physician or your practitioner has said, please drink less water for your kidney health or your hydration or fluid retention, you need to follow those orders. But a very global order for someone who doesn't have that requirement is half your body weight in ounces. So again, please follow physician orders. If you don't have those orders and you're well, otherwise you can go with this method. Here's the other thing though: if you're only having 2 cups of water a day, and all of a sudden you start drinking 6, you're not going to like me very much, and you're going to be using the bathroom an awful lot. So, if you're starting at 2, work up to what would be your recommendation in ounces, but so that number 9 there, where it says drink a 64-ounce bottle of water and finish it every day. That's not my language. I just use this graphic, but that's oftentimes you'll hear, let's have 8-ounce cups of water. It is so individualized what each and every one of us requires. And also if you're moving more or you're have active fitness in your life. And so there's extra fluid that comes with that as well. I'm accustomed to saying any questions, but I know we're going to get to questions in a little bit. I'm going to make sure I stay on time. Okay. So this is really, I think, one of the most important parts of long-term food, like food management. It's kind of a silly way to say it, but portions are one of the most confusing parts of what is happening, I think, to food in our country. If you're out and having a meal, you are probably being fed more than you require. Simply said, we like a good bang for our buck, right? If I'm going to go there, what does my husband say? He's like, I like more calories per dollar, which I think is super silly. I think he's just being funny because he knows of my profession. He's just to tease me. But the truth is, most portions are bigger than most of us need. Again, that very silly extreme example of someone training for the Boston Marathon and their needs are very, very different with that level of fitness and physical demand versus someone who isn't physically active for whatever reason. Those needs are also, or the amount that someone needs is again so different. But the bigger picture is this: that what we're being served out in the world is more than we need. And then what I think is really tough as a dietitian now, and to share with you, is about 6 or 7 years ago, the FDA decided that instead of having what was the original portions of sort of the food exchange system, which is a system of how to be accountable for food, those portions were what the nutrition facts, the label said. But now the food labels have what is generally recognized as common. So, for example, I might say to someone, and the food label used to say, have half a cup of ice cream, which I don't know that everybody loves to measure ice cream, but it's interesting to see what that looks like. Now the food labels say it's more common for people to have 2/3 cup. So we're going to label it for 2/3 cup. So the scary thing is that's great for manufacturers. People are eating more. They might need to buy that food again sooner. What's not great for us is that a half a cup is likely the portion that would have been reasonable. And now the label says 2/3 cup. So there's a lot more, I think, of, okay, it's reasonable to say that that's common, but now what do I actually need? So there is what I'm educating people in my office about food portion. I recommend something called the food exchange system, and it is universal food language, which I love so much because it talks specifically and over generally even about macronutrients. It breaks down what a carbohydrate, what a protein, what a fat is. It recommends the portions of each. The difference is I can't say to each and every one of you, because we're not together in person, and I don't know your medical stories and your life stories and your goals, but from those portions, then I'd be able to say, this is how many starches, how many fruits, or how many carbohydrates I'd recommend for you. But the beautiful thing is, if you're looking to have that language, you thank you to Google, you could look up the food exchange system, and it really is I believe, the gold standard in understanding food portions. And once you have that information, and again, I don't have the information to give you about your individual needs at this moment, but that's the way to be accountable and not be restricted, which is the most important thing for the long run too. Okay, there's that nutrition facts label. That was one of the things that Dr. Hicks-Fox mentioned that folks were interested in. I want to make sure I brought it up. So I don't have there it is. Can you see my arrow too, like circling around things?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. I wasn't sure how that worked. Beautiful. Okay, so the nutrition facts, this is a very generalized label. I do like that it's color coded for us in this case. Obviously, they're not when they are on a box typically, but the FDA says that nutrition facts must be placed onto products that have been through the manufacturing process. That's why when you're in the produce area, it's a free for all. We don't have that. And that's where that food exchange system comes in. You can look at those pages and say, oh, what's a portion of fruit? And you'll be able to see what that looks like. So nutrition facts, the first part in the blue there, that serving size, that's what I was talking about before, where now ice cream companies are saying, oh, there we go. Ice cream companies are now saying, have 2/3 cup. And I swear when I'm in the grocery store, there's steam coming in. And it should say a half cup. But that's part of what is happening now. So how many servings are there? What the serving size is? The calories are next. And calories really are just that globe. Again, there are countries, which I think is so wonderful. They just put energy there instead of the word calories, because that's really what it is. It's food that turns into energy in our bodies. And underneath is where all of the nutrients are. And so what I love to talk about in this section is the two things. Number one, there's the yellow part, which is the nutrients, and then there's the purple part that says percentage daily value. It's very important for me to share with you that the percentage daily value really is not for us all. And what I mean by that is percentage daily value is based on a 2,000 calorie diet, blah, blah, blah. Most of us have a different number. And so if it's just basing itself off of this percentage, it really is invaluable to you. What's more important are the actual nutrients. There it is. There's the macro. Here's macro number 1, total fat. Macro number 2, total carbohydrate. Macro number 3, protein. Anything that is indented and below that total is part of that number. So for example, in the fat, I wouldn't recommend this product based on what it is, but I don't know what it is. So half of it is saturated fat. There's the sodium for folks who are managing their sodium, people who are concerned about how much sodium they're taking in. There's cholesterol, and then there's carbohydrate, and oh my gosh, I keep hitting that. For total carbohydrate, there is 34 grams, and underneath that tells you of the 34 grams, 4 of that is fiber and 6 of it is sugar. This is part of the new law too, that not just sugar, but also any added sugar. And you can see that's just slightly indented below the total, because the law now says included or added sugar must be included in total sugar. The other nutrients, actually, here's the micros that are being labeled here. Some companies will want you to know that, oh, look at me, I've got not only these that are required, but I might have iron, I might have these other B vitamins that I want to tell you about. So others will add extras, but this particular label will show you that number as well. This is a lot of information, but I will say to you again, the one thing I would kind of reframe is that the actual yellow part, that nutrients, the nutrients here are way more valuable to everybody than the actual percentage daily values. I really wish that I could put a big X on those. Just, I think the FDA should take them out because a lot of people will say, oh, I've had, for example, oh, I've had 9 grams of fat. That's 12% of what I need for the day. No, 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 no. It's just not that simple. So I think it's really confusing and that's unfortunate. But again, that the actual nutrient side. Okay. So this is a little more of a personal question and something that I ask in session often because I end up working with people that are working through their own maybe disordered eating or have had a medical history with other concerns. And so how you feel about your body is, it can be important in how you actually treat yourself with both food and health and movement. So that's a very personal question, and it's not something I expect people to answer out loud by any means, but it's something for reflection for you, for anybody who's interested. This is one of the things I often say with people, but I really believe each and every one of us deserve to live in a body that you feel proud of, connected to, and that if you don't want those cravings that I wish that you didn't have them, but that you also have all of the energy that you need to live your most wonderful life. And really, that's what we're here for, to live our lives. And again, food's only job is to give us that energy. It can be pretty entertaining, and I think that's what's happening, right? All of these wonderful flavors and places to eat, and of course, our creativity with our own food is something that's part of life and part of our experience. But ultimately, having the energy to live your life is the most valuable piece. So this is just something to put in your pocket. It's not necessarily something that any of us have to do, but I love when somebody has something that feels maybe hopeful or maybe their interest is piqued to add or eat differently. So if you wanted, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the lingo of tiny goals, but I love the idea of a tiny goal. And a tiny goal is to add or start with one small change. And in this case, these are just little examples, whether you're wanting to increase your fluid or add some produce to the meals, to a meal or more than one meal, commit to more movement or different movement, or even to partner our foods. And we didn't talk about that much. I'll do that maybe during questioning with partnering foods. So if that's something you'd like to do, this is kind of a little, a short example of different ways to pick a tiny goal. Sometimes a tiny goal goes well with something that you're already doing. So a great example would be like, hopefully you're already having meals or snacks. And this is something actually I did for my kids when they were younger, because kids don't always want to have fruits and vegetables. And so I give them the option to say, you're welcome to pick a fruit or vegetable at these meals. And you may not even have like the one that I'm serving. Ideally you would, but if you'll have an applesauce, or you'll have something that has produce in it during our meal, that's really what we're aiming for. And not with perfection. Sometimes it doesn't happen, especially with kids. But for all the rest of us, that can be kind of a nice way, or even just adding a fruit or again, a breakfast, however you want to start with that. The movement is so personal. I want to go back to that for a second. This is, again, very global example of including some walk or doing a fitness video from home, which can be not unreasonable to request, but sometimes our bodies don't want to cooperate with that. So however movement would, work for you in your life and what your body is willing to do, outstanding. It does not need to be any other way than what works for you. And I guess I'll stay here for a second and talk about partnering foods because I really didn't do that before when I was talking with you about macros or macronutrients. So one of the most important parts of energy balance, which I'm glad I put that in the slide, is to partner, to bring together more than one food group. And typically, I'm going to and say, I'm encouraging you to have a carbohydrate because your blood sugar will benefit from that. We all need something. And then the partner for that can be a protein or a lipid or fat or both. So, for a very global example, that would be like an apple for a carbohydrate and peanut butter, or it could be crackers and cheese, a hard boiled egg and a granola bar. Okay, those don't go together well. But there's lots of different ways that you can partner. And naturally, when we eat, or I mean, even cross culturally, when we eat, we have rice and chicken or steak and potatoes. It's very common to partner. It's when it's again what's happening so much in the world today with protein focus that these carbohydrates are getting pushed aside, and that's it's unfortunate. So I'd like to say as often as possible when we're eating, if we can partner, it's just better for our energy. And then we're not missing something. We're not missing a nutrient that our body's looking for later. Because again, that body can be really smart to say, you only had a salad with chicken on it for lunch. There was no croutons, there was no bread. So about 6 or 7, 8 o'clock at night, I might be hungry for something sweet because I missed that other carbohydrate during the day. So again, as often as possible to partner. So I'm kind of saying it all right here in this little goal section, but I realized I didn't really touch on that earlier. So, okay. So I wanted to share this with you too. If you're thinking of working with somebody, I'm going to encourage you to work with a registered dietitian. I can be that person, but either way, what's important about that is there is so much confusion and misinformation about who's giving advice on social media today. There are all kinds of influencers and people that will say that they're a nutritionist. And just so you know, you are all officially nutritionists. Congratulations. It's my pleasure to introduce you as such. There's no regulation on the word nutritionist. So that's why you could travel over to GNC and their name tag would be so and so, and underneath it would say nutritionist. So I don't have a problem being called a nutritionist because I know that I'm credentialed and I'm in the medical profession, and I follow science and I had to go to school, do all this stuff. But just really my heat of love is to say, please be careful who you're taking advice from because there is a lot of nonsense out there. And so, yes, I'd love to work with you if you're interested. But more importantly, I just wanted to give you that information on. I'm working with a dietitian. My information is here, and that's my presentation.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was great
you.
information. I think information that everyone can use. We will open it up for Q&A because I'm sure that individuals have more questions for you. But that was you touched on so many important questions that I know that I had and you had as well. And I love the fact that you were not thinking that carbohydrates are evil. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Glenda, are you going to manage questions?
Yes. So we do have one question. Do you distinguish between complex carbs versus simple carbs and maybe explain the difference?
That is a beautiful question, a wonderful and quite reasonable question, actually. So, very simply, complex and simple, I like to think of it as flavor. And so, immediately when I think of that, I think of okay, simple carbs, you can taste that sweetness. And with complex carbs, more often you can't. So, fruit, it's already broken down into the fructose that your body will turn into glucose. And most starch really is complex. The molecular structure is there's a lot more there's more glucose and fructose put together. We don't taste that sweetness. Our body has a lot more work to do to turn it into usable glucose in the body. So I think of it as, I guess the other part is like, if you're craving the sweetness, the simple, there's a reason for that. Like your body's missing some sort of carbohydrate. You're missing the amounts that you might need. And some people don't crave sweetness. They might crave more starch altogether. But really, I think there's a lot of confusion too with, craving sweetness as being maybe not ideal or not recommended. But every day, 24 hours a day, all of us have glucose in our blood. We wouldn't be sitting here with each other. It's required. It's not an option. It's what feeds our tissues, our brain, our organs. And the greater question would be, if someone is eating only simple, that would be, there would be a why. Or maybe for even more clarification, most drinks that are sweetened, for example, that's very simple. And that's where an overabundance of consumption happens, sweetened beverages. But there's definitely room for both, I believe.
Thank you. I think Brother Jacob has a question.
Well, hello. Yes, I have a question, as
Hey.
you could expect. It'll be a simple one. First of all, thank you so much, Susan. You've definitely informed me that I've been eating all wrong. Allison has been eating correct. And I actually bought the Kool-Aid. I bought some Cheerio proteins with protein. However, the carbs were still the same. It wasn't reduced in carbs. It was increased in protein. However, the bad part was the sugar was added was cranked up. So I have learned that. I do have a question more along the lines of, well, two questions, but I'll make it really, really quick. I I eat fast. I mean fast. If I sitting down and we're at the table eating, by the time someone sits down with me, I could be licking my plate. I mean, I eat that fast. But I was told not to eat fast. And what's the problem with eating fast? If you could help me with that.
Yeah. First of all, I think two things. I want to comment on your Cheerios, and then I'm going to definitely talk to the speediness. So I think what's really interesting is there's a benefit. The Cheerios don't bother me as much as the Pop Tarts. I don't know why, but I will say this to you: that absolutely makes sense that there was a little more sweetener added, because I'm certain when you add that protein and the flavor just went right out the window. Like, what just happened? The Cheerio just got confused. But the nice thing about that is, if you're having that for breakfast, you're having both. You're having your carb and your protein together. It takes a little bit of the management out of it. So that makes sense. So they became more nutrient dense. Every bite had more of everything, is what you're really saying. So hopefully they taste good. Hopefully you're feeling a good balance of energy. That's really the beauty of that.
Mm.
And so I love your second question too. That's a wonderful and I think a valuable question. There are a lot of us that have, for whatever reason, learned to eat like we've got to be in the next state tomorrow. Like, we're going. So here's the biggest opportunity, I believe. The number one is, our bodies take 20 minutes to register being full or having satiety. So let's say that you've got a beautiful plate of food and you've eaten it, and you might go back for more. But maybe by the time that you've had your more, your body says, whoa, I didn't need all that. So I think that's the hardest part. We don't necessarily gauge our fullness
Mm.
in that moment. Is that something that you've experienced?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I eat so fast that I'm like, I'm still hungry, but
Right.
I have read somewhere that it takes a while before your body to figure out that, okay, you got all this in your gut now, and you need to, I don't need the additional servings, but I eat them because I'm greedy and I'm hungry. But anyway, no, I appreciate it because this has definitely helped me. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so this is so, what you're experiencing is so common. And I'm talking male, female, everybody. There's so many people that eat quickly for whatever reason. But I want to give this to you too. And this is really for everybody, which is some people will get your beautiful plate of food, whatever you're having, put your phone on for 20 minutes. And so the beautiful part is as soon as you start eating, you'll see how fast you're eating. You can see if you're going to maybe sign up for the Olympics. I'm just kidding. But like, you'll be able to see that, okay, I'm done in 5, 8 minutes, doesn't matter. And now you've got this other friend saying, hey, hold on a second. You got 12 minutes. Talk to somebody, drink something, read something, look at your phone, do something. And then you get to say, it's been 20 minutes. And if you are genuinely hungry, please do have more. But it gives you that pause to understand that maybe you were full, but you just didn't know. Like you said, you didn't understand yet. Your body and brain didn't connect it. That's all.
Okay. Thank you much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So you mentioned fiber when you were talking about the labels, but can you talk a little bit more about fiber, how important it is in your diet, and how much should you aim for each day?
Absolutely. It can be your friend. For some of us with irritable bowel behaviors, it can be your not so good friend that you wish was not in your body. So, depending on the person, fiber can be helpful. Some people find it uncomfortable. And different types of fiber digest differently. So, sort of the global recommendation is 25 to 35 grams per day. And ideally, that would come from what we're having. So, a little more produce and whole grain focused. I'm going to go back to how I talked about water, which is if you're having 8 grams and you jump up to 25 grams, you're also not going to be a very big fan of what I said because you're going to be just bolting for the bathroom. So wherever you are, actually the produce recommendation can help with that. Having produce 2 to 3 times a day, even more, will just naturally increase your fiber. The other important piece about fiber, and you'll be able to visualize this with me, if you're biting into a beautiful, juicy apple or some grapes, there's that hydration that comes with it. So produce fiber is prehydrated. Now, if we had a box of bran flakes or all bran, that stuff is like sawdust, right? It's so dry. And in order for fiber to actually move through our bodies and do its magic, it needs to be hydrated. So if people are looking to increase their starchy fiber, wonderful, but make sure to drink water because otherwise things are not going to be moving the way that you'd want them to. Your body will have to hydrate that fiber. That's again the beauty of the nature fiber or the fiber that comes from produce. Not that the grain doesn't, but it's just different. It needs to be hydrated to do its magic. So the global recommendation is 25 to 35 grams, but also it can be variant depending on someone's medical needs as well.
Great. I know we can't really target certain areas, but is there a way that you can focus on losing belly fat? And potentially, how can food and nutrition help with that?
A very common question. Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? So I wish we could target the way things worked. And the one thing that comes to me, so before I get to the food component of weight management and weight loss, I really believe in building strength. And part of that can be finding a way to do some, if your body is capable, obviously, some form of Pilates or yoga that would enable you to, again, build that strength in your GI area where you could feel more empowerment. It's the word that comes to me. And then after that, unfortunately, weight loss or weight management isn't just simply targeted at, unfortunately, in their tummy or their trunk area. I think the difficult part is that happens from top to bottom. I've had clients say when they've lost a really large amount of body weight that their feet are even looking different. So it's really just top to bottom. I think really what I would say to someone is make certain that you're drinking water, that you are strengthening your core, if you can, and again, if you have the physical ability to do so. And then again, from a food standpoint, let me think about how I want to say this. I would say portions are part of weight loss, right? So if you want to have a better reach on getting the amount that your body requires, that information I gave you with the food exchange system can be helpful to understand what a portion is. Um, but to target just belly fat, there could be like if I step back medically and I say, oh, okay, there are as a female, women can go through menopausal or perimenopausal changes that does affect how the body distributes weight, and there can be other medical diagnoses and changes that can affect how bodies with thyroid can distribute weight. So there can be something underlying that isn't being managed or hasn't been figured out yet, I guess. But yeah, I wish spot reducing is spot strengthening is better. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. And can you review again how much water, if you're have no health conditions to be concerned about? You mentioned in the presentation the general recommendation for the amount of water we should drink daily.
Sure, sure. So um, from wherever you're starting, increase slowly and progressively, but half your body weight in ounces. So if someone weighs 150 pounds, for example, it would be up to about 75 ounces, which is a pretty simple, quick recommendation. But from wherever you're starting, do not go right to 75. If you're at 24 ounces, you're realizing you're only getting 2 cups in a day. Going up to 75 would be like a urinary party. It would be bad. Just slowly progress with like a half a cup to a cup a day and work up to that.
Thank you. Deanna, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. I want to say thank you for all this information that you have provided, Susan. I wanted to ask about water. A lot of news has been going on regarding types of water and healthy water and not drinking water from the tap, and bottled water not being healthy. So I wanted to ask that question, is it a such thing as like a bad water or good water, or is this water okay to drink, even if it's from the tap? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I think that's so much pressure, and I will admit to you, this is from my sink. It's the real stuff, right from the sink. Um,
Yeah, I do prefer tap water, but when you go to
yeah,
restaurants, or like I said, some people just said it's just not a good idea to drink tap water, and mainly maybe because of water from Flint when they had the Flint. So there, people, tell me not to trust the water. So um, that's why I'm always a little concerned when I'm drinking water from the tap.
I mean, I how could we not? How could you not feel that way? That makes so much sense to me. Respectfully, that's scary, and I would say that, and probably for peace of heart and peace of mind, the easiest way to go about that would be to get a Brita filter, if that would help you to feel like you are filtering out some of the nonsense that doesn't belong there. Um, that's certainly a solution, and there are people that do that. I think what's really important is that you deserve to feel confident about that. And I wish I could like guarantee, like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be drinking tap water, but I am. So it's one of those that's in wholehearted honesty. Like I don't really have the right information other than to say
Okay.
I'd rather you feel confident about what you're doing, and it might be worth. Brita filters are everywhere. I don't know. Would
Yes.
you feel better about it? That's probably the best solution
Yes.
because you know that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They have been recommended, but I didn't even know if Brita filters, if they filter out enough. So yeah, so I'm always confused. I do drink the water, but I'm always a little hesitant, somewhere in my, thought process about it. But I do drink the water, but just wanted to ask that since I had you available.
No, I think it's a great question. And here's how I think about what your question is really asking is like everybody in the world, and this of course includes you, you deserve to have peace when you go to sleep at night. And if
Mhm.
that would give you more peace, then it's worth every penny.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question. I was wondering, I don't always eat breakfast in the morning, or I'm busy, or I'm on my way out. What is the best thing to have, like on the go? Sometimes I might, do peanut butter crackers or something like that. But is there something in particular for, to have, some protein or something in the morning if you're on the go, or you really don't have time for breakfast or that kind of thing?
Yeah, outstanding question. I think you're pretty close. I would absolutely say bring yourself a peanut butter sandwich. That starch and that starch from whether it's crackers or bread and peanut butter together is very sustainable. And our bodies love that because that is the partnering, that protein from the peanut butter and the lipid in the peanut butter matched up with the crackers or bread. It's beautiful for our body. And that can kind of sprawl out to however you want to carb and protein together. It might even be if you are so busy and you're not interested in, and maybe it's like warm out, maybe you want an apple or a piece of fruit and some string cheese. That can also work as well. But that partnering, that is a good on the go
Okay,
partnership for sure.
thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Another question is what are your thoughts about carbonated drinks like LaCroix or ginger beer?
LaCroix is it's unsweetened, right? I think it's just kind of carbonated, maybe flavored water. So as long as your body can tolerate the phosphates and the phosphorus, then it should be okay. The There's a couple things I'll say. So there are sweetened carbonated beverages, and then there are alternatively sweetened beverages like diet sodas and other flavors, and then there are just carbonated beverages that have essences of flavors. So not everybody's body likes the phosphorus, which is the phosphate. That's how it gets all bubbly. So if there was a recommendation medically in your world that the phosphorus is not your friend, these should be donated somewhere else. But otherwise, I'd say that like the sweetened ones can be an easy way to have more sweetness than we need, meaning like the sugar sweetened. The alternatively sweetened ones, some of them have aspartame or stevia. The better part of that is that you're not getting extra sugar that your body will have to process. So ideally, I would probably say, I'd say that the ones with the essences, the LaCroix type, that's the sort of the optimized, right? There's no other additives or sweeteners. And the other two kind of compete for the market, right? Global example would be like Coke and Diet Coke. They've been around for a long, long time. The regular Coke can become, I'd say, just again, extra sugar. And then the Diet Coke is similar flavor, a cousin, but doesn't have the consequences of the extra sugar, for example. I'm not sure if that answers the question. I'm going to make sure that I got that. Is there any other question about that?
The only other question is are there some healthy alternatives to junk food?
Oh, I love it. Everybody loves a treat, right? Right? So I believe, here's what I think deeply. I believe treats are a part of our lives. Believe that I don't, of course, want you to have them 7 days a week all day. I mean, that would be really fun, but that's really not, that's not ideal for all of us. And I think usually what happens is if you did that and you had a treat party eventually, you might not feel great. Right? Our body will speak for you. I would say it that way. But I think our body, I often say to someone, let's teach our body what we want it to know. Let's educate our body. So if your body has been educated to crave or to expect sweet treats at 3 p.m. every day, the education will speak for itself, right? And then you could say to yourself, I'm going to re-educate myself. I'm going to plan on a nice little granola bar with, I was going to say hard-boiled egg. I just don't like that combination for some reason. A string cheese or a piece of jerky or some nuts. It might take at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 days because your brain's like, this is when we have treats. What are we doing here? I don't want that thing. But your body will eventually say, all right, fine. You know what? You're right. I'll have that maybe small granola bar and the string cheese. Your body will learn with you. It takes a little bit of time for the body to begin to expect that. Just so in real time, metabolism is a 3-day process. So if right now it's 3 o'clock and we all had a snack together, that snack would not leave our bodies for between 2 and 4 days. On the average is 3. So it would leave our body like Tuesday, Wednesday, which is kind of wild to think about, right? So it takes our body that long to actually catch up and say, fine, you're not giving me that delicious thing we've been eating all this time. I'll have the other things that you're kind of asking me to do. So there's a repetition to that, but there's also room for treats. I really believe it's important to say, you're going to a birthday party, you're gonna, well, please have some birthday cake. Now, what really happens in our world is birthday cake pieces used to be about this big. Birthday cake pieces have grown, like all the other portions have grown. So it's a matter of saying, let me have some, a little small piece, but there's a place for it. And then kind of, I think the question is this, they're kind of like skipping into like the world of like, say junk food. There's a lot of protein bars out now that try to taste like a candy bar, which is interesting. I'd rather you have, there are reasonable choices within that category. There are things like, for example, a Cliff mini bar is almost exactly a carbohydrate and a protein together. It travels well. It's in a package. It can be thrown in a bag, and you don't have to worry about getting my string cheese. In the summer, is not great in your bag. Where, this bar would be like, look, you're right. I can come with you. I'm not gonna. I can handle it. But there are sort of ways that you could use a packaged food like that. That's not, if you want to use it in the junk food category, that helps.
Thank you, Susan. I think that we are close to 4 o'clock. And
Okay.
so I appreciate everyone's questions as well. This was great. Naomi is going to have something to say right now. Naomi Lavender.
Yes, thank you again, Ms. Susan, for sharing your insight on nutrition and helping us. Also, thank you to our participants for sharing your time on your weekend and for God bringing us together. And I hope that this meeting will help us make healthier choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. And Brother Jake Holloway is going to just end the session with prayer. And again, thank you, Susan, and you'll be hearing from us in a more official way within a week or so.
Yes, thank you so much. This time we'd like to close in prayer, and if we'd all bow our heads and close our eyes. Thank you, Lord, right now. We thank you for this nutritional session that was brought to us by Susan. We thank you for the words she said. Scientifically based evidence is what we missed today, Lord. So thank you for allowing Susan to come and participate. Lord, you've given us all the food we need to eat. You told us what to eat, how to eat, Lord. And we thank you for that. And this just reaffirms what we have known. But we thank you once again for the medical ministry and the insight which you gave them to bring this to us, this session to us. And we thank you so much for the leadership of the medical ministry and all the team members. But Lord, we always will remember that you deserve the best, Lord, and we will give you our best because you gave us your best, Lord. So, Lord, thank you once again for this time, and we will always be thankful for your promise that you'll never leave nor forsake. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And Susan, there was a question, are these slides going to be available? Someone had to leave early. Are you able to share your slides?
Sure. I'll send
Okay.
them to you, no problem. Sure.
All right. Thank you so much. This was really a great session. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. Thank you.
Guys, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good to see you.
You too. You too.